All right, we are back with another Reddit commentary, and today it's the low hanging fruit. This sub was even more popular back a few years ago, but there was some fiasco where the a representative from the subreddit went on some news channel to do an interview, and it just went disastrously, and he kind of got excommunicated from the community, and there was a big drop, a scope of attention towards Antiwork, and then a big drop in its popularity for a few years there. But we're back. 2024, it's back up to 2.8 million members, and it's the top 1%. And I mean, it's just as bad as it used to be, just to be frank. So I say low hanging fruit, but in reality, this is actually much needed analysis because, I mean, 2.8 million people, that's ridiculous. And we're going to raw dog it because I haven't looked at anything. Just pulled up the subreddit, turned on the microphone, and I want to go right into it. But anti-work is just, it's the epitome of entitlement culture within America. And you'll see, it's no secret. So let's look at some memes here. Okay. We could end homeless by giving everyone homes for less than we spend criminalizing it. But if we just give everyone homes, nobody will want to work. So you agree, capitalism only functions with the threat of homelessness. What? That's such profound logic. The mechanism of capitalism is incentivization of people to work through the threat of homelessness. That's like such a simplistic, reductionist take on the actual reality of incentive structures and capitalism as a whole. Yeah, maybe you're kind of correct. Maybe more specifically, people are incentivized to make money under threat of, yes, not being able to provide for themselves, much less their family, having a roof over their heads and food on a plate. It's like that's pretty basic. Outside of this subreddit, it's pretty basic knowledge. And maybe I think I'm understanding that correctly. Yeah, let's just give everyone homes. Then we wouldn't have any criminals. Oh, but then no one would want to work. Like, what's? I don't understand the point. The point's a gotcha. This is a stupid one. Okay, there's a lot of texts in here too, of people communicating with their employer, and they're complaining. Oh, and the other thing is, if you anyone on the subreddit, if you are a boss or an employer or an employee, a coworker, and you text them outside of work hours, that is this subreddit's equivalent to the seventh circle of hell. Do not talk to me ever outside of my work hours. And if you do, not only will I not simply wait to reply, but I will reply in an extremely passive aggressive and an accusatory manner. And then I'll bait you and post it on Reddit so that I can karma farm. I can karma farm my exploitative capitalist oppressor. I didn't even look at the text. Can I ask the HR manager to send you a list of available positions and their wages to your WhatsApp so you can look at them and get a better understanding? It's 7:40 on a Saturday. I'm not interested. Thank you. Please take my number out of your database. He replied 1 minute later. He didn't have to reply. I strongly urge you to thoroughly examine your job description before reaching a decision. It is crucial to have a complete understanding before dismissing the offer. That's pretty fair. Again, it's 7:40 on a Saturday. I'm uninterested in working for a company who is uninterested in realizing that most people enjoy their Saturdays off. There you go. That's a sentence. A company who's uninterested in realizing most people enjoy their Saturdays off. Man, work is life. Business is life. People have responsibilities, and they don't stop when you're off the clock. It's just wait to respond if it's that big of an ideal. This is just recruiting. What's worth looking at with this thread? It's recruiting. If you're not interested, don't reply. Uh, You're wasting people's time, and then you're. I'm so tired of being fake for 10 hours a day for work. I am not at all being myself for 10 hours a day, pretending to give an F and literally wasting 70% of my life for something I couldn't care less about. And then we wonder why everyone is so frustrated, angry, and depressed. At least if you got a decent salary, it would have some meaning. Now you're just surviving. Also, F 40-hour work weeks. I've had like 8 jobs, and every dang job, except retail, is stalling for time to pass because nobody had 8 straight hours of work. So what's the point? The point is that there is a demand for services, regardless of your whether or not you're putting in 100% of your effort for 8, 10 hours a day, whatever it is. Which sure, that can be completely true. Like people will work in there. A lot of times, the work will come in waves. They'll get in the zone. They'll just work on something. They'll have breaks. Like it's not the static thing. That's the same all the time. It's like you're getting paid. If you're an employee, you're getting paid to be in a place and expected to perform a specific set of duties. And you have voluntarily accepted that role and that position, knowing what you were going to get paid. And assuming you live in the United States or a Western world, Western civilized country, you can. What's the problem? Because you have a few options here. If your problem is the work weeks, then or the 40-hour work weeks, then find a part-time job and good luck living off a part-time salary. Because newsflash, the world doesn't revolve around your preferences. There are a perpetual cycle of needs and demands for services and products. And there is a unwavering thirst for economic success by a handful of people who don't give a whatever they don't give an F about your wanting your time off, you wanting to work no more than 40 hours a week. That's not how the world works. So if you want to exist in that fashion, that's fine. Don't expect a luxurious life, and don't expect to be coddled when you project this onto other people. And if what jobs are you working? Give us some detail here. What jobs are you working? Is there anything that you could do to maybe acquire or develop your skill set to advance in your job, negotiate some kind of raise or negotiate better terms in your like the other thing is here with this subreddit is people it's a massive it's like they have no choice or ability. I understand. It's brutal out there and it can get rough. It can suck. But that's true for a lot of people, if not everyone. And the world is it's a raw place. And this type of mentality isn't going to get you far. Sorry, let me look at the comments. I wish our work days were 6 hours. I actually do work retail and can get my job done in 4 to 6. That's not the point if you work in retail. If you work in retail, your job is to be there to service the establishment until the store is closed. Because it's not about you. It's about the customers and your employee, or sorry, and your employer trying to maximize the value and the demand of your customers. And part of doing that is having a store open maybe for more than 6 hours a day. Because again, with the news flash, other people work 8, 10 hours and they do that consistently. And they need to go to the store after they're done with their shift. And they work 5 days a week, 6 days a week sometimes. So what are we going to do? We're going to alter the hours of retail to orient them around the retail worker wanting a 6 hour shift What is this delusion? And it's going to be a circle jerk in the replies because everyone on the sub is in complete agreement with each other. It is a massive. If I am myself at work, which I have done, I am less liked. We can stop there and go ahead and assume that this guy he's missing a little bit of social awareness. If you're yourself and you're not liked, maybe you're a less likable person than you would hope to think or you would like to imagine. And we don't. My mouth gets me in trouble. That's exhausting to have to pretend to drink the corporate Kool-Aid. The corporate Kool-Aid is what's allowing you to get paid for your likely inferior skill set. Likely. Maybe you're special. First thing I agree with in here is life is too short. But the first Marx reference in the first post we open up, that's what Marx called abstract work. In capitalism, work has no specific purpose or goal anymore. We just work for the sake of work and profit, which is theoretically infinite. We can unpack this a bit. This is an incredible statement. It's an incredible thing to say. In capitalism, work has no specific purpose or goal. We just work for the sake of work and profit. Okay. So we have no goals within a system of capitalism, but we're doing it solely for the sake of profit. Let's substitute profit. Let's just substitute that for economic utility. Do you think economic utility is something that at the end of the day is equal to one? Or what's that phrase? Do you think economic utility is a zero-sum game? Because if you do, then I understand where you're coming from. Because if we work and work and work, no one's lives are going to get better. Nothing is going to be improved about that. It's just pure exploitation, profit exploitation at the expense of the worker. It's almost as though there's no possible world that this person can conceive of in which more people working and more people learning to work more efficiently, and then over time scaling up that efficiency across different industries and processes and systems, it's almost as if they don't understand how that might add value to everyone's life. They don't understand that, okay, what monopolies or oligopolies or close to monopolies do we have in the United States right now? Amazon? Yeah, probably. Yeah, you could probably say that they're approaching what might be considered a monopoly by a lot of people, at least in certain industries. But there's still competition, still a free market. At the end of the day, though, are the employees at Amazon, even if it's a relatively toxic corporate workplace, I'll grant that. Are the employees at Amazon really suffering because they have agreed to work for Amazon and getting paid by Amazon on mutually accepted terms? Are they really suffering, or are they benefiting from the fact that the way that Amazon has scaled and the profit supposedly derived from exploitation has allowed them to grow to the point that they're willing to hire a likely useless person such as yourself? Sorry, I don't want to call you useless, but this is just when you talk this way, it's almost imply. Is it really at your disadvantage that a corporation is big enough to hire someone who doesn't want to work because they have to make money if they want to do anything in life? You don't have to make money, but if you want to do something in life, you got to figure out how to make money. And even if you struggle, which many people struggle, many people struggle in more ways than people realize, and there can be struggle far past just living paycheck to paycheck. That's a big one, but struggle can run much deeper than that. But this concept that you think of as corporate capitalist exploitation is the exact thing that affords you the privilege of even having a computer to go on and a website to run to, an echo chamber to rant within about your horrible situation. It's all so ironic at the end of the day because it's like, have some situational awareness, have the ability to look around you and realize that you're not the victim. Like, I'm already done with this one. Let's get out of here. Oh, we don't hire based on gender, sexual orientation, or race. But before we even look at your resume, okay, and then they're on the supposedly application, they're asking for your gender identity. You can only pick one. If you identify as LGBTQ, and how you would describe your racial ethnic background. I think that these aren't uncommon to ask on a application, but this person is likely implying that because they're asking about LGBTQ, oh, and racial ethnic background, that the information is going to be used to discriminate. That's the assumption that they have. When it's probably more likely, I don't know. I've applied for many jobs, and these are common questions. Maybe not the LGBTQ one. Race and gender are definitely common. Um, it's more likely that they're doing it as liability protection, like CYA, or it's required by the government. I don't know, but it's like nice assumption. Okay, let's have some 6 points of work advice from likely a veteran anti-worker. Okay, one, people will take advantage of you if they can get away with it. This can be true. Two, your colleagues aren't your friends. That's another that will accurately define a lot of attitudes here. Is that work and all things work related and work considered, because it's a responsibility that doesn't meet your exact or ideal preferences. Anything associated with or correlated with that activity, it must be shunned. Your colleagues aren't your friends. Even if you met a colleague that was a fantastic person that you got along with, and you guys actually started to hang out, that person wouldn't be your friend because they're your colleague. Anything you say or do at work will be used against you. Number three. That's a, I mean, you're kind of right. Because if you say something stupid, people take stock of that. And if you project yourself as a useless person, that doesn't go unnoticed. And the vice versa is true too. If you put yourself out there, aim for success, aim for impressing others with your work ethic instead of this weird insecure mindset, then that'll be noticed too. And you'll likely rise quicker than your peers will, because the people who have been around that business or industry longer recognize that you are demonstrating what it takes to be successful, or even a desire to be successful. But these three assumptions together, that's all you need to have a disastrous time at work, because you're setting yourself up for not only failure, but you're preventing yourself from succeeding. Because put yourself out there, but do it in a way that's like, be smart, be cautious. The world is not forgiving. And especially when you become an adult and enter the workplace, there's no reason the workplace should be as forgiving. A lot of them are, though. Like, a lot of them, a lot of workplaces are fantastic and they have great resources. But if you go into a job thinking that anything you can say will be used against you, you're going to look like you're defending yourself in court. It's like, don't think that way. Figure out how you can provide value to others and whatever it is that you do. It's really ridiculous that that's not a commonly accepted thing here. All right, let's keep going. 4, if you hear gossip, assume people will do the same to you. I'll agree with that one. Gossip is toxic and rampant, and that it's not great. But there can also be a fine line between gossip and conversation that makes someone uncomfortable. And so it's just dismissed as gossip. 5, new workers always get the shitty work nobody wants. Yeah, I'll give you that. The lowest on the totem pole have the least luxury. Fine, you win. You win on that. 6, Perception trumps reality, and it doesn't matter how good of a worker you are. Huh, maybe. But I'll counter back with that and say that perception often indicates reality. And it's not perfect, but perception doesn't exist in a vacuum. It's not a result of a random set of variables. If you're perceived to be a bad worker, it's much more likely that it's because you're a bad worker than it is because you're a good worker and people just perceive you as a bad worker because perception trumps reality. Don't think of those two things as separate. Think of those two things as intertwined. And it makes sense if you read this and you were to take these 6 pieces of advice actually into account and incorporate that into how you compose yourself. Yeah, you're not gonna rise to the top fast. I promise you. People are aware of these types of things. They're aware of attitudes in which someone wants to be doesn't want to be there. They want to be the victim. They have no interest in growing, learning, developing, and even seeking new relationships with colleagues, because sometimes that can be where some of the best relationships come from. People, like-minded people who share this like a everyday struggle as you. Immense bonds can be formed over work-related issues. Tax evasion by millionaires and billionaires tops 150 billion a year, says IRS chief. We're not going to go into that. There's no possible way that these Reddit denizens are breaking down the numbers and figuring out what is fraudulent and what is a legal tax write-off. Because unless you're going to make the claim that the billionaires should be obligated to pay the government more than they have to, then give me the numbers, show me the fraudulent activity, and then we'll talk. But you're just using headlines to evoke reactions in a subreddit you know is going to give you those reactions. Wow. Here we go. Universal health care. Living in the US sucks. Myself and 5 of my colleagues have had toothaches that get so bad that we have to call out of work and hope it goes away long enough for us to work a bit. I've taken nearly 4,000 milligrams of acetaminophen, and that shit hasn't done anything to help the pain. You're probably gonna have some stomach issues. I put ice on it. I've swished a bit of alcohol and water, blah, blah, blah. Can't afford to go to the dentist. Dentist will be getting a giant ass check of $222 million. The least they could do is be able to give us dental care for putting on their little conference. Fuck corporations for making everything with too much sugar and overly sweet and processed. All right, multiple layers to this one. We won't spend too much time on it because it's a low effort post. But I mean, he closes out with the F corporations just to throw it on top. But it's another case of grouping everything together because everything renders you the victim. Everything is at the result of your exploitation. It's like, here's the logic: is that I'm assuming he's talking about his work. I don't know what his work is, but his job had him put a dentist convention on. He had a toothache that he couldn't afford to get checked out by the dentist. I guess he doesn't have insurance. I guess he doesn't have a dentist. That's a separate issue, but they're related in his head because, oh, well, if my company can afford to do something work related that involves dentists, then I'm entitled to access to free dental care. And that's what's not, I mean, he says that pretty directly. But like, why? Why is the least they could do be able to give you dental care? If you want dental care, there are ways to get it. And there are jobs that perhaps will offer it. But it's like you negotiated a job that didn't offer dental care, you got a toothache, and now you're pissed at the company because you don't have dental care. And then you're pissed at corporations because you ate the sugary food that gave you a toothache. It's a straight line victimization. We're done with this. The rich have been taking advantage of the tipping culture. If we stop tipping, it can have important positive side effects in the long term. This is going to be a good one. Tipping has become mandatory in our current day and age. It's gotten to the point that I question if I should tip when provided certain services, just not to look bad. However, that's not the actual problem. The actual problem is that the businesses we are benefiting the most from this tipping culture, and this has a negative side effect on the majority of us, the working class. The businesses literally get rich while we, the customers, pay for the food, drinks, as well as the business workers. True. If you think about, also, let's go back. If your base assumption is that all restaurants are getting rich while customers are paying insane amounts of money for food, you need to get out more. Restaurants are struggling like crazy right now. And what state was it? Was it California? What was the $16 minimum wage? That was just passed. That closed. A lot of restaurants had to close down because of that, and that's to be expected. You think you think restaurant owners are getting rich, except for the most lucrative and luxurious locations and food industries in wealthier areas? Yeah, probably there. That's not true for all restaurant workers. It's simply not. I worked in a restaurant for what, 2 3 years. It's it's brutal, and the owner, their job is not glorious at all. Some are more successful than others, but that assumption is like, oh, that breeds so many false conclusions, so many poor conclusions. I really think that we should put a halt to this tipping culture. Some positive effects I can see from this are: one, decrease of greedy business who do not pay their workers a living wage. If people stop tipping, then the workers will need to find a new job. Employers need their workers to stay, so they will have to pay them a living salary. Two, contribution to decrease in wealth gap. Rich will hoard slightly less wealth since they will have to pay living wages to keep their workers. The second assumption is just wrong, because it's like, to assume that all business owners are just rich people hoarding piles of gold and cash and coins under their whatever. Like, that's just so far removed from reality that it makes me not even want to spend any more mental effort engaging with this post. Like, it's ridiculous. We've only gone through a few posts and I'm already getting worked up. I'm sorry. Oh, let's see what people have to say about this. Work is good for mental health, UK Prime Minister. Let's see what this will be really funny. And that's the UK Prime Minister. For those that do not know, he's trying to legislate and stop doctors being able to give people sick notes for work. This dude who's giving you mental health advice wants the power to access mental health to lie with not medical professionals but with his Department of Work and Pensions. The UK Department of Work and Pensions have previously assessed several physically disabled people as fit for work, as have not only been linked to several suicides, but have been caught shredding documents related to the suicides they've caused. British public don't vote for this man or his policies. He was installed by the party, a party that is so brazenly corrupt that it has been polling at 20% for the last 2 years. Okay, great. If that's true, that's wild. Give us evidence for that. It very well could be, but you're throwing out a lot of stuff here. The UK Department of Work is directly caused and is trying to cover up multiple suicides. Wow, that's a bold claim. But just the headline, work is good for mental health. You can say something that what would be obvious if you ventured outside, went to a couple stores, a couple of businesses, spoke to some flesh and blood people. I think most of them would agree that work, um, ritualized work, and a set of meaningful work-related responsibilities that you can hone in on and develop over time as something that in many ways will become a craft for you, and that provide you with many things, including a widened view and perspective of the world. That's not a that's not an acceptable statement on a subreddit like this. You should know, and it's assumed right here. It's unspoken yet assumed that work is not good for mental health. I wonder what the ideal. This guy should go outside and touch some grass and then resign and never talk publicly again. That is just good. That's really, really good stuff. That's gold right there. He needs to go outside. Work is good for mental health. Person A says. Person R says, you need to go outside. Oh my gosh. Work can be stressful, man. Responsibilities are stressful. Life sucks. Life is stressful. I can't keep doing this. Is inflation just price gouging? Always has been. Economics 101, folks. Economics 101. Okay. Oh, that's good. To be indispensable at work. The big work lie. Being indispensable will save your job. Oh, let's look at that. What if you were to, if this was spoken in a vacuum, being indispensable will save your job? Is that a phrase that you think you would disagree with or oppose? Why would being indispensable not help you save your job? I'm having a hard time gauging the true sentiment here. So these people don't seem to think that being indispensable will help you. Being indispensable will, at best, keep you in the shitty position you're now in with zero upward movement. Really? Would it possibly, at best, keep you from getting fired? Like, conceivably? You said it. Best way to guarantee that you're going to let you keep your job, that you do it so well, is to do it so well. It's a lot easier and maybe cheaper to hire someone else for that role. You want to train one person and move them up, you have to train two. It's such flawed logical premises. They called us essential during COVID, but when we asked for a living wage, suddenly we're expendable. Well, I mean, you can fall within an essential industry of work. That doesn't mean you have a right to overreach your negotiated salary. And you have a right to ask. But if you demand, that's a different story. And yeah, you'll get fired. And there's one thing that's unspoken too, is the intangible here is that fine line between that skillful negotiation as an employee and weird insecure demands that come off as not tasteful to the employer. I would guess this is a speculation. This is a assumption and a guess based on what I've seen here. And I'll admit that, and I admit I could be wrong. But I would guess that most people within this subreddit, when they make those advances, they fall less on the side of very skilled negotiation and more on the side of passive aggressive, entitled demands. And I guess we'll never know what the case is. I was literally indispensable. 17 years to my company, was literally indispensable the last 6 years. Boom. Laid off last October as part of a nationwide 3% cut to labor. At last check, my job was being done by two people in different roles with no experience in what I did, for less money and still required to do their own job on top of mine, and managed by someone. Well, that's why, because they actually have a different set of skills, so they're doing a different job. They probably are doing their own different jobs, but assuming they're needed and those roles are needed, and they were able to take on your workload, that stuff happens. It's sad, and I'm sorry. It really does suck, and that stuff does happen. And industries aren't always perfect or pretty. But there are no absolutes in these things. There are no guarantees, and there are no absolutes. And understanding and awareness of this goes a much longer way than this constant, perpetual mindset of woe is me, which I get. I do understand it. And I've been there. Like, I'm not trying to, it's just a very malicious, it's a vicious mindset to be in because it drives all of your other conclusions in life, and it dictates how you see the world. In almost every situation where there is a line to be walked, you'll fall on the side of the victim and not on the side of someone who has agency and choice over their future, because that's what you come off as when you speak in this way. And I'm sorry for these people that have had these poor experiences. And a lot of times that's all it takes to find the sub and to really, I mean, you feel good there. If you have a bad experience with work or a boss or a coworker, these people, you can post it here and these people will rub you on the back. So I get it. I understand it. But we should just be more aware of we should just be more aware of how this entitlement attitude will breed not only less productive, less useful people, but an ignorance that just makes everything worse, makes life contemptible. Because if you spend your time in anti-work, you're just necessarily going to become more contemptible, unfortunately. But I hope people in here have more positive experiences in the workforce, and I hope they start to really think about and understand the power they have in creating their own future. It's not easy. It's easier said than done. But the first step is to get off of this, to get out of this echo chamber. And you can do it. It's cool.